The game opens up in a very unconventional way. We see James, the leading character, staring down at the mirror. He looks at himself and does this very unconventional hand motion. So we think, is he hallucinating? Is he trying to get back to Earth in terms? But then he lets out a sigh of relief. So that concern never truly leaves us, considering the state of the environment of the bathroom in which he finds himself in. And also, throughout this whole sequence, throughout this whole opening, make sure to pay attention to the music that plays, because the music is as much of a leading character in Silent Hill as James himself. And then he begins wondering, Mary, could he really be in this town? He wonders about his wife. Soon we'll understand this question. As soon as he leaves the bathroom, another strange event occurs. You can see that James scans the environment as if it was the first time he was there. He seems a little bit confused, a little bit lost. And then he wanders towards the lake, his mind heavy in thought. And then we are treated to a very cryptic exposition by none other than Mary herself, James' wife. She dreams of Silent Hill, and she speaks about a promise that James once made. And you can see by his body posture that it weighs heavy on his shoulders, on his mind. And she also claims that she's alone there now, in their special place, waiting for James. But then something strange happens, a shift in the song. Now we begin hearing a guitar theme that's almost happy, but still sad. James then begins thinking about how he got this letter with the name Mary written on it, his wife's name. And then he also states that it's ridiculous because Mary had been dead for quite a while now. However, he has doubts. He keeps telling himself that's impossible. A dead person cannot write a letter. And then he asks himself, why am I looking for her? Why am I moved by this letter, even though I know my wife is dead? And he also has trouble understanding what Mary meant by special place. As James himself states, the whole town was their special place. So he begins thinking about possible locations. His first and most immediate memory of their time together was the park on the lake. And then he wonders, is Mary really there? Is she alive, waiting for him, going against all possible reason? This whole sequence gives us so much insight as to what is to come in this game. And if you paid attention, you'll notice that that happy but at the same time sad guitar song that we just heard was actually a way of the game showing us how James felt towards his time with Mary. And then a strange occurrence. You pick up a map in James's car and you see that the Rosewater Park has already been outlined on it, even before he thought about it. Strange, huh? So with only that information to go by, James sets out. He's unable to take his car, he needs to take the road. And that is where a lot of the brilliance in this opening comes to play. Shrouded in heavy fog, Silent Hill offers no compassion. Silent Hill offers no friendship. It's not a welcoming place. And the most interesting aspect, the most bold decision that was made in this opening sequence to me is the fact that for a long time you're simply walking. And as you begin walking around in this abandoned place, you begin getting that sense of dread. You know something bad is going to happen. Of course, the fog, the heavy mist plays a huge factor in this. You can barely see 10 feet in front of you. And while you're walking down this dark and lonesome road, you begin realizing that something could strike you at any moment. However, you are unarmed. So a bigger sense of dread begins growing inside the player. If you pay attention, you may find this well with this red paper at the bottom. And soon you come to realize that you'll be saving the game whenever you access those papers. So this further drives the point that you are in danger. You have met no threats whatsoever so far, but the game gives you an opportunity to save. So you begin traveling down that rabbit hole of paranoia. What will be of James past those gates? However, as soon as you go through them, you come to learn that nothing, not yet. But wait, what is this? It's a graveyard. On your way stands the graveyard. Now, since this is a horror game, one could think, well, maybe it's here where things are going to go south. However, James meets a very peculiar and also important character to Silent Hill 2's story. The conversation that ensues is offbeat. There's something odd about this person. She seems off, almost lost. James ends up scaring the woman who was lost in thought, perhaps just as lost as he was. After trying to control the situation, he lets out a bit of information which actually puzzles the woman. James says he's lost, to which he asks, lost, as in, how could you be lost? Why would you even be here? And what he says next about looking for Silent Hill could strike the player as something very strange, because just a few minutes ago he said that Silent Hill was his favorite spot with his wife, so he's bound to know it, and now he says he's lost on his way to it. She then warns James that it would be better if he kept his distance from the place, which also puts another doubt in the player's mind. Sure, the moment you begin playing this game you understand that there's something very strange about it. But James' lack of response to this obvious fact makes us think that maybe there's something out there, maybe there's something wrong with him. He then politely dismisses the warning and says he's gonna be careful. Still concerned, the woman pleads for a second time, and then we understand what's really going on with James. He says that he actually doesn't care if it's dangerous or not. This may sound like sheer bravery for a newcomer, however, as you progress through the game, you come to understand that this very sentence could very well be self-destruction.
Who is it?
Someone.
Eventually and reluctantly, James tells the woman who he's looking for, and he also says he'd do anything to be with her again. And then the woman says she's looking for her mama and then quickly corrects herself. She says mother. However, that makes us think, why did she correct herself? Is she embarrassed of being looking for her mother? Did something happen? And she also says that she can't find her brother and father. What's going on in this town? What is wrong with it? And then this very awkward conversation ends. However, as you progress through the game, you understand that there is a deeper meaning behind everything that's said to each other. And what is really interesting so far is that we are 8 minutes into the game and not a single enemy has appeared before us. All we found was a very distraught woman. As you look around, try to find your way, you find certain places. You see that along our path, we'll find many everyday, completely common places and buildings, which will yield to nothing, and this will also add up to the tension, but I'm going to discuss this in a few moments. So, as James keeps on pressing forward, your sense of adrenaline, your sense of danger begins rising. You think, okay, I've been playing this for almost 10 minutes. Nothing has attacked me so far, and this is a horror game. However, the game keeps on leading you, because you will still walk for a little while, seeing different locations, as you can see right there, the Silent Hill Ranch. But there's nothing happening. You're just walking. Some would argue that this would actually represent James's dread about finding out what happened to his wife. Is she really dead? Is she alive? And if she's alive, why does James dread meeting her? Does he have something to hide? Has he done something? Those are all thoughts that the player has plenty of time to have as he walks down those empty paths. After all, that's all the information that has been fed us so far. That was deliberate. However, Silent Hill 2 knows how to pace itself. They understand that this bit of the game could begin to grow tiresome at any minute. So, it is exactly at that moment that you begin seeing signs of civilization. However, there is something that will remain largely unchanged throughout the game. No matter how much of civilization you may see, you come to realize that this place is deserted. And you begin wondering, why? Why is there nobody here but James and maybe a few other characters? However, the game immediately throws you a curveball, because as soon as you reach Silent Hill, which would be something that would set players' hearts at ease, because after all, you're in the city now, the music changes for the macabre, already showing you the dreadful, or some would say sinful, spirit of the city. And remember, we are 11 minutes into the game, not a single sequence of combat so far, only one dialogue sequence. After another good minute of walking, James finally reaches the city part of Silent Hill. This should bring the player a sense of ease, but it actually does the opposite, because now you are in this deserted and macabre town, unable to see 10 feet ahead of you, and the first thing you find is a first aid kit. Now, this could bring joy to most players, but remember, this is a horror game, so your first thought is going to be, well, I am unarmed, and the game is already offering me means of healing, so what should I expect? Am I going to encounter opposition? Again, unarmed? And as you can see, as you run through the streets of Silent Hill, you will see several buildings, which could bring peace, but will only serve to remind you that ultimately, James is alone. There's nobody here to help him. And as James keeps on making his way through this deserted and menacing town, he soon comes across the first sign of danger. Blood. Lots of it. And what James sees next is just as horrifying. He sees this humanoid figure walking away from him. And you, as the player, know that as scary as that is, you must follow it. Even though James is completely unarmed. Should that being be hostile, James will surely meet his doom. On your way to what feels and seems like certain death, James will come across another save point, along with one health item. This will further increase the tension inside the player's mind. I'm getting the option to save again. There's another health item here. How strong can that enemy be? The game itself is telling you that something bad is about to happen. However, you may doubt it. After all, you were given a chance to save many minutes ago, so will the same thing happen again? Or will we finally meet that strange creature? It is in here that the game presents the player one of its most important mechanics, radio static, which the player will soon come to realize that will always warn them whenever there's danger nearby. So now it is time to see what that creature was. As James makes his way inside that tunnel, he makes it clear for us that he's no combat veteran. He has no experience, he's just a normal guy. Perhaps even less capable than some of you would be. However, just as you're trying to understand what the hell is happening, the creature finally rises. It's an abomination. However, James must fight for his life. So he immediately goes for whatever it is that he can use as a weapon to defeat this monster. After all, remember the conversation he had at the graveyard with that woman. James does not care if that place is dangerous. James is there because he wants to be. There's a reason, there's a purpose, which will become clear later in the game. In a very disturbing moment, James finally defeats the beast. And remember, we're not talking about zombies here. We're not talking about fully humanoid creatures. We're talking about aberrations. We're talking about monstrosities. And the player immediately knows that the moment he turns back, more of those creatures are going to be there. Even if it's the first time he's ever played this game. And it's nothing short of brilliant that a game with a 15-minute opening, with a lot of walking, one dialogue sequence, and one very short combat moment, manages to absolutely suck the player into that universe. This opening alone told the player everything they need to learn, to understand, and perhaps even to feel about the time he's about to have in Silent Hill 2, making this one of the most perfect introductions in all of video game history. Now let me know some of your own selections. Who knows, maybe I'll feature them right here. So if you enjoy this small tribute to how Silent Hill is one of the most perfect horror games of all time, then please go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, because there's more where this came from. This was Belmont speaking to you, and I'll see you next time. Later.